Hi, I'm Eric Linask. We're here at Editor's Day in Santa Clara. And on the program with me from Aria is Tom Dibble. Tom, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about recurring revenue for a little bit. It's something that I've heard more and more companies starting to address, the need for finding recurring revenue streams. Why is it becoming so important?
We've seen huge market shift in the last few years, and I think the two driving forces we're seeing, the customer is demanding it in terms of how do they want to consume goods and services. Mm-hmm. They want to do so on a usage basis or a consumption basis, or only want to use something when it's convenient to them and not necessarily have to own it. Often that translates into recurring models, whether that's subscription or rentals, if you will. Mm-hmm. And also the trend that companies that are executing well on building thriving recurring revenue businesses are getting very handsomely rewarded by Wall Street. You can prove you've got a robust and predictable recurring revenue business. You're getting a much richer valuation, whether it's a private company or a public company, by the financial analysts and the institutional investors versus a traditional CapEx transactional model. Those two forces combined with the technologies like ours to make this a reality are driving huge adoption in these models.
What is the recurring model do to the bottom line?
Well, first and foremost, the top line growth accelerator is dramatic in terms of allowing companies to enter new markets where they either are not currently today, or expand their footprint in markets where they feel like they've reached somewhat of saturation point because they don't offer goods and services in a specific way that the further addressable market would like to be able to consume them. So being able to leverage up that pricing and packaging creativity to further penetrate markets is causing further growth. And more specifically, our technology, other than enabling higher top-line growth because of those very reasons, it also automates a lot of very typically labor-intensive processes. There's a lot of moving parts to a recurring revenue model in terms of minimizing churn and revenue leakage and collections and onboarding and provisioning and customer support. Traditionally, it's either not handled at all, or it's handled by giant acres of call centers in Nebraska or Nevada. Technologies like ours automate a lot of those things, so in turn, in terms of the bottom line, it saves a tremendous amount of cost out of the system and drives up profitability.
So you talked about some of the issues or some of the problems that Aria helps address when it comes to recurring model. Talk a little more about sort of your place in this landscape.
Well, we are very focused on the enterprise segment of the market, and we define that by the global 2,000 size of companies, as well as the high-growth, young, new entrants that we call the S1 category. Young companies that have recently gone public, are in the process of filing to go public. They are here to stay, and they're building great businesses, and now they know they need true enterprise-grade infrastructure to scale to that next level. Those are the two markets we focus exclusively on. Within those markets, we have projects on the enterprise side that are greenfield, meaning let's go launch a new IoT initiative that's a complete blank sheet of paper, or we have projects that are considered modernization projects, where you have companies like a Constant Contact or a Pitney Bowes or an Adobe. They run their SaaS businesses on Aria that realize they want a next generation system to get their legacy infrastructure into the 21st century. We do both of those types of projects very well.
Who do you compete with?
Well, historically there was a homegrown element. We see that less and less because businesses today are very focused on core competency, and I don't want to get distracted by these supporting
rightfully
ancillary items. The legacy players, in terms of Oracle, SAP, Classic Billing, Amdocs, Converse, and the like. Out here, there's a lot of noise from folks like Zora, Vindicia, Transverse. As far as other pure play SaaS vendors, they're more focused on the SMB long tail. So we see them a lot less frequently than we do the legacy on-prem guys. But more often than not, it's the big ERP shops, the big footprint.
And certainly in the market that you play in.
Yes, very much so.
So what differentiates you from those guys?
From the SAPs and the Oracles of the world? If I had to really boil it down to one word, it's speed. It's I know there's a tremendous amount of buzz and hype around cloud, and you got to be multi-tenant, and that's all well and good. And believe me, we're fervent believers in that. We're 100% pure multi-tenant architected system, but we don't get purchased by a company like a Pitney Bowes or an Experian or Audi because we're SaaS. We get purchased because we can get them to market very quickly. That it's a fraction of the time to deploy our technology and get us up and running versus one of the other alternatives that are out there. And furthermore, once they are up and running, if they want to iterate on that model and they want to experiment with pricing and packaging and bundling, that's core to our product. It's out of the box. If you want to iterate and tune pricing, packaging, bundling, and all the rules that surround it with something like an Oracle and SAP and Amdocs, then that's an army of consultants. That's another 4,000 hour SOW, and Lord knows how many months to configure that change.
And probably a few additional dollars.
No question. Yeah. With ours, it's all about the velocity and the flexibility.
Got it. So Forrester recently published its first wave report in this market. Why did they do that? And more importantly, what's the importance of that, or what does that mean for the market?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, I think with all of these markets as they mature and they go from kind of the science experiment category to there's a real viable business here, there are real buyers, there's real money being spent on it. The Fortune 500 companies are coming to the likes of a Forrester or Gartner and IDC saying, I have this need, what would you guys recommend?
Okay.
That to us is a very seminal moment in terms of the maturity of the market. And I think there's a lot of confusion in the market around, a typical buyer at a company that's saying, okay, I have this need. Why should I look at, a pure play like Aria versus an SAP versus an Oracle versus a traditional telco billing company like Amdocs? May come as no surprise, a lot of the marketing sounds very similar in terms of all the different things that we enable, but really getting somebody like Forrester to come in and take a very fresh, objective look at the landscape and define the strong suits of each of the players and where they play is a really nice piece to see come out and really, I think, absolutely validate the space.
So when you see a report like that come out, how do the traditional players, the folks that you're competing with and you believe you have some real competitive advantages over, how do they react to a report like that? And see what we've got to make some adjustments on our own.
It's a great question. I think time will tell how they react. I can tell you, speaking of the Forrester report specifically, they started with a field of 42 different vendors, and they winnowed that down to 8. And then from there, they chose 3 leaders, which I'm glad to say we were one of. But there were some real surprises in that final result of the wave did not include some of the large guys. Because in their homework, do you have a real thriving business that is growing and is considered innovative? And some of the large guys that you would assume would make the cut weren't even on there, which we were pleased to see. But it's very much a reflection of the times in terms of the enterprise willingness to buy technologies from a smaller company.
You think it sets a stage in the market for an Oracle or somebody to sort of get into it through acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, there's always talk of consolidation in any market once it starts to get validated by the analysts, not to mention enterprise companies spending real money. And to me, that's only further validation of, hey, we're onto something very big here.
Fair enough.
When people start paying attention and the competitors kick their heels up around, looking at the buy versus build angle, it tells you you're onto something very big and keep it up. And that's exactly what we intend to do.
Excellent. Sounds good. Congratulations.
Thank you very
being
much.
Part of the report. Thanks for being here.
Cheers. Thank you.